Hi everyone, I'm Jessica. I'm one of the co-founders of Part3. Today in this session, we're going to talk about the financial aspects and features that we have in Part3. In our first session, Part3 Basics, we covered how to get your project set up. I'll just cover a few of those items to make sure everything's in place so that when you're ready to hit the ground running with changes and quotes and pay apps, you feel ready to go and everything's in place for you. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Make sure you drop any questions in the chat or Q&A, and I'll save time at the end to come back to those. So I'll share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, so I'm in my project page and everything related to financials in Part3 is strictly at the project level. So first of all, I'm going to go into settings here, and all I want to do is double check that I have the correct contract value. What this will allow me to do is every time I enter change orders, then this will make sure that the contract value gets updated. If you are bringing a project into Part3 that's already started and has some authorized changes to date, you can update this amount by clicking edit and coming in here and making sure that that's updated. And that way we'll pick up where you left off. Another thing to set up is project budgets. This may not apply to every project. If you have allowances or contingencies on your project, this is where you're going to set them up. So down here, you'll have your overall contract value, which is a starting balance of 0 here because you haven't added any changes to your contract yet. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a budget. So let's say this is unforeseen conditions, and I'm going to make it a starting balance of $50,000. This is an allowance. It's within my contract price. So I'm going to click this and I'll just get this pop-up here to remind me that it's within the contract price. So if I pull something from this allowance when I'm reviewing a quote, I'm not going to increase the contract. I'll add another one here for contingencies. And I'll say that is 100,000. And I'm going to make sure I mark it as a contingency here, and it's outside of the contract price. So if I assign anything to this contingency, I will see an increase in my contract overage. So I'll add those two. You can see I have my starting balance. I haven't issued anything to date. So this is the main setup that you want to get done for your financials in Part3. We just want to make sure we have all the dollar values so that we can start moving forward from here. One other thing that you want to make sure is that you have your assignees set up for your changes. This is something that we covered in the Part3 Basics session, but basically after you update your Teams page, invite all of your consultants, then you can go in and assign them to those documents. And that way, when you create a change, such as a proposed change, but maybe you call it a proposal request, you can update that here. When you add people, let's say I add an electrical consultant to a change, now I already have them preset. I don't need to worry about setting them up once I make the change. And doing this will just make things a lot more streamlined. So if I click that, Jacob's going to be my primary, and that just means that at least one person is responsible for making sure that all the work gets assigned, but tester 4 here will still get tasks and they can contribute to all of these changes in the exact same way. I also want this to apply to change directives and my certificates. These will always be the same people. So I'll click save. And now when I go in and create those documents, I'm ready to go. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go to the logs page. Where you see changes, this is where all of your change documents will live, with pricing, which is quotations, and certificates, which is pay apps. In Part3, to create any of these documents, go to the plus sign in the top right corner, and I'm going to click proposal request. This is what we would call as a default proposed change. Again, you can revise this to suit your own naming conventions. This one, I'll say maglock requirements. And the reason for this is the AHJ has decided that we need to add a maglock on our project. So I could add a description here. And now I'm going to select which consultants are involved. So it's myself and electrical. You can select as many as you want. This is the disclaimer that I set up at my org level and I brought in. This should be set up for you, but you can always come in and modify that if you need to, and then click create. Now I have the building blocks of this change document. I can see here under architectural, I have all of my basics because part 3 is doing the PDF for you. And now all I need to do is start adding my drawings or attachments. Let's say I wanted to work on my team with this. All I'm going to do down here is mention them. So maybe I'll mention this Jessica and say, can you look up a product cut sheet? And then we can collaborate together on this document. Once I feel good to go and I have my drawings, I'm just going to click this and I'm going to add my drawings. For this one, I'm going to say it's level 102, or it's drawing 102, sorry. Level 1. And then I can give a description, refer to detail 8. And I can add that. Oops, I'll just add a drawing here. So this is just drag and drop, or you can upload it from your server, or if you save files anywhere else. So I'll add that, and now I can see here, I've brought in my drawing number, the date it was revised, the title, and the updated detailed description about what has changed on that drawing. You can add as many drawings as you want. You can add attachments. Maybe this was a spec update, or you wanted to include that product cut sheet that you found. And now you can see as well, this is pulled in at this document level. So you could add any annotations if you wanted to here with our annotation tools, but now we've pulled in this for you. Your electrical consultant, because I set them up as my multiple assignees, they have also received notifications that they need to come and contribute to this change. So Jacob and Tester 4 have received notifications. They can come in and, and they will get the same option to use cover pages in part 3. They can have their own logo, their own disclaimers, everything that they need to do in part 3 that you get to do, they can do as well. And really the idea here is bringing all of your consultants into part 3. Everyone has the same up-to-date information and you can collaborate together. Under this comments area that I was using, this is all for consultants. When you have a general contractor or an owner that comes into part 3, they can't see these comments. So this is a really great area to collaborate with your consultants on changes and any document in part 3. This saves you from searching emails, calling, following up. All of the documents can come here, all the conversation, everything like that. When, let's say, Jacob is logging into part 3, they're only going to be able to contribute to their area. They can add drawings and attachments just like you can, and it will update their cover page for them automatically. Or if they want to, because a lot of firms have their own process in place, and we don't want to force consultants to work in a way that they don't want to or that their firm doesn't allow if they have their own processes. All they're going to do is click edit, and they're going to say that they're using an external cover page. And this just basically means that, hey, I don't want this part 3 cover page. I'm just going to attach the document that I have from my own company that I made in my own system or that they made in Word or whatever they use. So let's call this electrical proposed change 2. I received it and it's dated on the 11th, and I'll say refer to security schematics. And this is all entered by your consultant. Again, now you have this, there's no cover page, you just have their attachment, and you can make sure that everything is here. So it's really important to include your consultants in this list, because if I go back to my logs page, for example, I can see here that my consultants were involved. This will help me later on if I want to see which consultant was involved. I want to see all of the ones that have electrical. So now I can see this is an electrical change. It's really important to make sure that your consultants are on your documents. It helps with future data, and it just helps you sort everything at the project level. Let's say I'm happy with this change. I can sign it. I'm ready to go. And your consultants can also sign their documents if they are using our cover page. You can see here we have an improve and needs work. This is only internal. So let's say maybe the consultant missed something. I could say missing cut sheet or something like that. And then I can see here that I sent them an email saying that it needs work. I can see that in the history. And that way they know to come in and revise something. But let's say it's approved, good to go. Again, these are only internal for your review and discussion. Your reviewer area is for any external or internal reviews. So let's say maybe you need someone internal to approve this. Maybe I need my own internal principal at my company to review this and sign it. And maybe I need the GC or the owner to come in and sign it as well. So I'm going to send them notifications. They can come into Part 3 and they can sign documents just like you can. They will see on their overview page. Let's see if I go to Bob Vance. Now he has a task to come in and contribute. So he'll come in here and he'll sign this document, or he can reject it and leave comments for you. If you want to issue the document, so I'll send this for review. Again, they'll get emails. If you have an owner or someone who doesn't want to come into Part 3 and sign it, that's absolutely fine. You can send it for review so that you still have that status that it's under review, but you can download the PDF as well and just send it to them if that's something they prefer. So I'm going to issue this document. Let's say I did send them a PDF to sign. I'm just going to say hard copy sent for signature. And I'm going to issue this. Now I'm sending this as one combined PDF file. So it has my architectural cover page, my drawings, and my electrical proposed change that was attached. I can always come back and add my final document, and that means you can come back and add the actual final version that was signed. You can also do a few other things like create a revision, turn this into a change directive if it's work that needs to be done ASAP, or you can price it. So following this path with the orange buttons through Part 3 is the way that we've kind of, mimicked what happens in the real world, where you'll issue a change, you'll ask for, give me a price before we proceed with it, or if it's a change directive, send me the pricing along the way or at the end. And either way, all you need to do is just follow this price it button. Let's say I am a contractor, I can come in and upload this quote, or as a prime consultant, you can upload it. So letting your GC come into Part 3, similar that they can upload submittals and RFIs, they can also upload quotations. So I'll give this a title, Maglock. There's no impact to the business days of the schedule. If there was, I could adjust that here, and a description if you need to. You don't need to worry about this because you click the button from PR1, we know that that's where it originated from. So I'll click this and I'll see here, this was my initiating document. So I can see my referenced documents down here and how it was created. Now, all they're going to do is add pricing details. I'll drag and drop my quote into here. And normally when you receive a price from a general contractor, it comes in a PDF format. If it doesn't, sometimes we see people PDF the email just as a real record of the document coming from the general contractor and the price. We have these line items here. You could break out this as much or as little as you want. So maybe if I just wanted to call this, this is my proposal request number 1, it's architectural and it's all contract overage, I could do that. But let's say I want to break this down a bit more. So I have drywall bulkhead revisions. And that's architectural, and that one is $1,100. Now I have Maglock and wiring, and that one is electrical. That one, because I have allowance for unforeseen conditions, and this was something that came from the AHJ, maybe a building code revision or something like that, I'm going to assign that to my allowance, and I'm going to click unforeseen conditions. And this is the reason that you want to get this all set up before you start issuing quotation and pricing documents. Now I can see I have a contract overage of $1,100, and I'm assigning this portion for the Maglock to my allowance, and I'm taking $2,800, so I'll have $47,200 left. So as soon as you select a budget, we're going to give you this breakdown at the bottom. And now I'm going to click save. I'm going to request a review from electrical on this one because they're involved and I want them to review their portion of the quote. I'm going to send that off to electrical. They will get a task. And similar to everything else in part 3, if it's a submittal or an RFI, the review area is always on the right-hand side here. So when your consultant comes into part 3, or if you are a consultant, you just need to look on the right-hand side for where you contribute, where you provide your review and your responses. Let's say architectural, I think, is fair and reasonable, but electrical will come in and they will say that it's rejected. Price is too high, or maybe they quoted the wrong model or something like that. So it's rejected. You can see here that I just got to flip-flop between myself as architectural and my consultant. You as the prime consultant have that power, but when your electrical consultant comes in, they can only review on behalf of their discipline. So I'm going to submit that review. You're going to see that I'm blocked here. I can't accept it because I need both statuses to be fair and reasonable. If it's rejected, we assume that you don't want to move forward with it. So I'm going to request a revision. I'm going to send this to the general contractor, maybe the owner, and I'll copy my other electrical consultant and say incorrect product was priced, so the price is too high. And I'm going to request that revision. Using this back and forth quotation review in part 3 really helps because now you can see all the different stages that your actual quote went through, and you can come back and double check those anytime. So now I can see here, I have my revision comments. They will also live down here in my history, why it was rejected. And then now the general contractor or yourself can come in and revise the cost. Let's say they're fixing the product and it went down to $1,800. So I've adjusted this and I'm going to save it. They've adjusted the price. We've decreased the dollar value that we're taking from the allowance, and now they can request the review again. So it's going to go back to the same consultants that were involved originally. Architectural was always fine with the quote, and electrical now accepts it. So we're going to submit that review. Everyone's happy, the review's done, so I'm going to click accept. You can provide any acceptance notes if you want. And if you had any comments under your fair and reasonable here, so for example, if I added a comment here, looks good, and I submit that review and I accept it, I'm going to see that comment pop up here. So I'll confirm the pricing. You get one final review here of the dollar values that you're taking from an allowance and your overall contract overages. You can decide who you want to notify. So maybe you want to let the GC know and the project owner know this quote's good. A change order will likely follow soon for that. So I'll accept the pricing. The next thing you can do here is create your change order. So I have, it's called a CCN of my project, but this is usually a change order or whatever you want to call it on your project. And this is just a document that finalizes the contract value increase. So if you don't issue change orders, this is normally the flow that you would stop at. And you'll see here, if I go back to my pricing page, I have I have a green tick. I can see it's quote number 1.1 and it's approved, the consultant's approved, and the total cost of the change. If I go back into this, I'm going to create my change order. And again, I'm just clicking the orange buttons to follow me down the path that changes are normally approved in. So I'll say this is Maglock level 2 updates. I'm pulling over the same reason. You can add a description if you want. There's no impact to the business days. I have the disclaimer I already set up. And at this point, theoretically, you don't need to involve the consultants again because you already included them in the quote review. So their portion of the work is done because you as the prime consultant are the one that issues the change order. So you don't need to select yourself because you'll be auto assigned anyways as the person that's the kind of gatekeeper for the change order. So we've pulled over this quote for you. We know the initiating document. Theoretically, all you need to do at this point is do a double check down here. I can see here contract overages is 1,100. My unforeseen conditions here is 1,800. And then pulling that from my budget. So you can see I have a remaining balance here. I can hide that balance if I want, And that might apply more to contingencies. If you don't want the GC to know how much money you have left in that pot, you can turn it off if you want to. Now, if you go back here, I just wanted to show one thing. If I go back to pricing, I'm going to see that this is locked because I've already put it on a change order. So we don't want you to have the ability to double dip. We're kind of putting those blockers in place to make sure that everything lines up with your project financials and you don't accidentally pull from too many pots or duplicate the cost. So I'm happy with this. Everything's pulled in. I already did my work at the quote review level, and now I've signed the document. I can also send it for reviewers. So in this case, normally that would be your owner. Maybe it's acknowledged by the general contractor. And again, similar to the change that I did, my proposed change, this reviewers area, they can come in and they can sign. They get a task to come in and sign as well. We put a line item here for them to come in and throw their signature on it. This verbiage can be updated, by the way, if that's something that's important to you or your owner. Just let us know, reach out to us. And just let us know that you would like this revised, what document and what you would want it to say. We can make some modifications there for you to suit your contract. I'm going to send this for review. Again, you can create the PDF if they want a hard copy of that document. And then when you're ready, you can issue it. So I'll show you what that looks like here. I'm going to issue it. It'll let me know I'm missing a signature. I can add a distribution message so that when things are sent out in the email from Part 3, you can add additional context and information to people if you want to add why this change order was issued or what changed. Now, if I go back to my logs page and I go to changes, I have this full history of what happened. So I issued a proposal request. I got a quotation for $2,900 and it's approved. So I issued a change order. I can click into all of these items, but what we're doing when you follow that orange path and click those buttons is we're painting this picture for you. If you don't follow that, you can always come back and make that association with your documents manually. It's just following that orange path just makes it much easier and it's done for you. Again, this quotation is locked because I've already assigned it on this change order. Because this is the latest issued change order, I can also reopen it. What we block is, let's say if I had 10 change orders issued and my change order number 2 had a mistake, you would have to work your way backwards, because if you go back here and I can see all these impacts, we don't want you to have the ability to go back and adjust number 2, because then 3 through 10, all this information would be wrong. So you have to open them in reverse order, or you could issue a change order for a credit amount or an additional whatever that is and reference the original document. So that is kind of the flow of changes in Part 3, how you would create your proposal request, go it to a quote, and then to a change order. Other documents that we have are supplemental instructions and change directives. Both of those are the exact same in terms of creating your cover pages, adding drawings and adding attachments, and how the consultants contribute to those documents. Once you've done one of them, all the rest fall in place as well, and you'll get the hang of it as soon as you've issued a couple documents. If I go back to my settings page as well and I look at my project budgets, I'm going to see this dollar value that I allocated to that allowance, and I can view the transaction. I can come in here and get and jump quickly to those documents as well. Really, this is a way to connect all your dots in Part 3, and you can also export this at any time. I'm going to show you now what pay apps looks like in Part 3. There's some different verbiage that's used. So if you're Canadian, you might call it certificates for payment. If you're American, you might just call it pay apps. Either way, I'm just going to show you what that looks like, and you can adjust the naming in Part 3. I'm going to create a certificate here, and I'm going to start with my pay app. If you're a general contractor, you can come in here as well and upload your pay application. That's one thing that you can do to collaborate and keep everything in Part 3 instead of emails, and you can have this back and forth before it goes to a certificate. So if you're a GC, you're only going to see this pay app option, but if you're a prime consultant, you'll see all 3 of these. I'm going to start with a pay app. I'm going to say this is my August 2024 pay app. You're going to pick your pay periods. invoice number, which is typically from the general contractor, a tax number if that's applicable, and then you're just going to upload the actual PDF of the change document. Here's where you can select which consultants you want to contribute to that review. But maybe you haven't had a good look at that pay app yet, so you can just create it. Let's say, for example, they're not progressing against any electrical this month, then I wouldn't tag the electrical consultant. But what you can do is go back and click edit and add the consultants that are being progressed against. And now you've added them here for the review. There are a few different options here. In my pay application, you can see that I've only uploaded this document. I could upload additional attachments if I needed to. And now I'm going to review this because this is with the consultants. It's in their ball in court to review all of the information and the financials and the backup. So I'll go through here, and this is very similar to quotations where as the prime, you can respond on behalf of everybody, or your consultants can come in and they're just reviewing their own portion. Again, we have this comments area. It's really helpful to use this and keep everything and all the context in part 3. Not only does it benefit you as the prime consultant, but it really helps the entire consultant team make sure everyone's on the same page, looking at the exact same thing and actually communicating and aligned with what's happening on those documents. Let's say this is rejected. I can request a revision, or I can just push it to a certificate. Maybe something's rejected because they want backup photos, but you're still happy to move forward with that. You could push it to a certificate, but now I'm going to request a revision. I'm going to let the GC know structural. Maybe they want that revised to 25% from 40% of what's being billed. As well, you can see here at my multiple assignees level in my project settings, I didn't assign people. That's okay. I can come in and assign them here. So maybe I'm just going to assign these individuals. They can come in and they will get tasks to come in and contribute and review this pay application. So if you haven't set it up at the team or at the project settings level, that's okay. You can always do it at the document level. Now this is revised. A revision is needed from the general contractor. They can come in and create that revised document by uploading a new PDF, or maybe adding an updated attachment down here, or pictures if that's what was asked for. And then they're going to resubmit it to the consultants. It's going to go back to the exact same people that were on the original pay app. And you'll keep going in that process until everyone is happy with the dollar value that is being progressed against for that month. And then you're ready to convert it to a certificate. If you have existing certificates on your project, you're just going to clone it so that we can carry over the dollar value from the previous month. If this is your first certificate, you're going to make a blank one, and I'll show you what that looks like. You're going to select the owner, the owner's rep, and the contractor, and then create your certificate. Now I've come in here and I can see my certificate. This is our standard Part 3 template. If I click edit here, this is all the dollar values that I get. They typically align with what is shown in this pay application, especially the AIA form. There's a couple differences, but this is the standard template that we have in Part 3. Any of these gray line items are automatically populated for you. Same with these change orders. So if you recall before, we issued a change order for $1,100, so that dollar value got pulled in. This is my first pay app that I have, and they're progressing $95,000. I'm pulling back my holdback, which you may call retention, and you can revise this naming as well to suit your own conventions. I haven't released any holdback to date. If I did, that's where I could update it. I don't have any money I'm holding back for deficiencies. This is just the start of my project. So my net certified amount is $85,500. I don't have any previously certified because this is my first pay app. You can override these dollar values. So for example, sometimes things are off by a penny or two and you need to override it. You can do that here. You can update your disclaimers down here. And then make sure you click save in the top right corner. This is where you can adjust your holdback rate and tax rates on the top as well. If you needed to, you could use a custom template by adding line items and breaks to do whatever you want in terms of layout. Just keep in mind that these aren't auto-calculated for you. Hopefully that's something that we can get to in the future, but right now that's not something that we have. So I recommend using this standard template. There's a few other things that we have certificates that you can enable. If I click here into customize cover pages, it's going to drop me into certificates. Let's say I want to include a cover letter, and I also want to include a change progress log. All of these things are optional. Even the certificate is optional. If you only wanted to include that AIA form as an attachment with your signature, you can just disable the certificate and only include your cover letter with that attachment. So you have quite a few different options here with certificates. Now that I toggled on my cover letter, I can see here, this is my standard template that I have. And I've used all of these hashtags to auto-populate the information on my project and on my pay app. You can revise any of that wording. And then now as well, I have my change progress log. This is, again, completely optional, but we will give you a breakout of all the change orders that you have that are approved. And you can also show ones that are under review. And the use case for that is typically if you have a change directive that you're billing against or progressing against, but the change order is not finalized. You could toggle that on and off. And then the edit function is what allows you to track the progress of that change. Sometimes if your GC, everyone's human and they have different dollar values, maybe something was entered incorrectly. So what we do here is put blockers in place for you. So I can't accidentally enter this as 3,900 instead of 2,900. This is actually going to block me at the approved amount, and you can progress against this each month and hit save. And this is something that you can include in the output of your certificate. When I'm ready with the certificate, I'm happy here. I'm going to sign the document and click save. I'm also going to sign this cover page. And you have the same option to send it for review. You could do that if you wanted to. Same process as the other documents that we talked about. One other thing that I want to note here is that on all the documents that I covered today about proposal requests, change orders, everything in Part 3 has a due date on the side. I forgot to mention that, so I just want to make sure I cover that now. If you use the reminder schedules in Part 3, you need to make sure that you have due dates set at the document so that we know when to send these reminder schedules. So I'm happy. I'm going to issue this. I can include a distribution message if I want, maybe advising the owner, check for liens, we're good with payment, we think this is fair and reasonable. And now this is all being combined in a PDF. The next month comes and I'm going to create my certificate. I can go through the same pay app. So if I did that again, let's say this is September, and I'll just quickly enter this information. Once you're happy, and I'll say this is fair and reasonable, I can convert that to a certificate. And now I'm going to clone it. So I'm just going to clone August, and it will tell me here that I'm cloning it. Again, I can select this information. I've pulled in all of my previous numbers here. My previous amount billed to date was 85,000. Now, if I click in here, theoretically, all you need to do is update line item D. Now they're billing 180,000 is the total value of work performed to date, but they previously billed 85,000. So now I owe them 76,000, the certificate plus tax. So all you need to do is clone your certificate and carry it over. That is how pay apps work in Part 3. That's also how our financials work in Part 3. And you can see here, these certificates have been issued as well. Going through the changes again, we'll connect the dots for you. Pricing here, linking back to the documents where it was initiated, giving you an overview of the dollar value, and giving you this icon to let you know it's already allocated. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a minute, but I do just want to point out here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our help center. You can always come here and look for certificates, cloning, populating, same thing with pay apps. You can come in here, pay applications. Any of these change documents you can look at, or sorry, any of these help documents, but you can also reach out to us and ask us a question. So just enter your subject line here, tell us what's up, what you need help with, or an issue that you're experiencing, and this will come right to myself and my support team, and we'll make sure that we respond to you as soon as possible. I'm just going to check here, see if we have any comments in the Q&A and chat. Looks like we're good. So I just want to thank everyone for attending today, learning a little bit about Part 3 financials, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. We really want to see you and your consultants come in and collaborate on all these documents and really get the most out of Part 3. Thanks for attending. Bye.